Recorded May 29th, 2025. Good afternoon, Edward. Good afternoon, Edward. Good afternoon, Edward. It looks like my screen overlay is showing something they shouldn't see. So we need to get that corrected really quick. Let's do that. How about that? Nothing there. Well, this is the Security Insights Show with a big emphasis on the. You'll notice that we've removed the Microsoft moniker from our title. I'll give you a little bit update on that. But first of all, let me fix my screen because I'm seeing this thing over my face, and it shouldn't do that. It's a solo outlook. Let me do that. So what is happening here? Wow. Ed gets one chance to run the show by himself, and this is what he does. There you go. We'll put background and do that and see if it does it. If not, let's go to the media content and do it here. Don't know. We'll see. So today we are continuing with our episodes on getting partners to have a offering inside Security Copilot, and this is one of our returning guests, one of our security partners that are coming on to talk about the way that they are interacting with Security Copilot with a custom-built agent that they created. But one more time, let me fix my screen. Maybe time to read a little. Look at that, people. It's amazing what you can do with technology. Sorry about that. So it is a rainy day in Atlanta, Georgia, which I am. I am semi-solo today. Rod is out taking care of some personal items, as he is entitled to do. I hope the best for you, Rod. Go out and take care of family, man. Do your thing. Ray is under the weather. Allergies are beating her up, so she's trying to recover also. She's had a hard week. And Brody is in transit coming from somewhere, saving the planet, probably dropping out of a helicopter to go ice skiing or something, which he has done. But as we do the security rundown today, I'd like to say it's been an exciting, first half of the year. We're almost at June. Who would have thunk it? They're really fast. Recap, we had the start of the year episode in the entirety of the month of January, talking about what we did on the outset. We had Women in Cyber Month, which has been a huge success for us 3 years in a row. It was exciting in March. We also flipped around the theme month and had partner month in May rather than having it in April, as we generally do. So we are continuing the May tradition by having, and I always get the name wrong, Performanta. And my guess is going to get me wrong. If I don't butcher names, I butcher titles and all that stuff. Also, they're going to actually come on and talk about their version of an agentic AI solution that enhances or empowers Security Copilot. But before then, I want to talk about some of the readouts that I've had on security things. And some of these are sort of not old. But I didn't realize it because I haven't really been paying attention to the identity space. So one of the things that came out was, and I'll read it here, announcing the general availability of linkable token identifiers across Microsoft logs. That's a big thing. If you're a security practitioner and you have multiple logged in parameters or portals or points of entry, it has been hard to do the correlation of those identifiers across, whether it be a GUID, a SWID, whatever that may be. But now, because of that work done by the Microsoft Entra team, and it is general availability. Let me go to the comments here and put it in here and just give you the actual title of what was released. It is announcing the general availability of linkable token identifiers across Microsoft logs. And if I want to put in a little bit of meat on the bone, what does that mean for the average Joe? Long text here. You're looking at, we're pleased to announce the general availability of linkable token identifiers across our logging surfaces. call it surfaces. Entra sign-in logs, Exchange online audit logs, Microsoft Graph activity, Teams audit log, SharePoint. Check that out. So a lot of times it was hard to do correlation and stitch meaningful authentication and login activity across the collaboration platform at Microsoft, as well as maybe the administration platform and security platform. But now that this has been released, and I think it was GA, don't hold me to it. Let's take a look at it. Looks like today, 29th. So big shout out to Alex Simons. He's a big wig over at Microsoft around the identity space, from AD to Azure AD to all things that. I got to meet him in person one time, a long time ago. Really, really, really smart dude. And if you read it, we'll put it in the show notes. This milestone marks a significant step in Microsoft's commitment to enhancing identity, traceability, and security. Because we're hacking identities, right? If I can obscure or impersonate or obfuscate my authentication activities, or manipulate your authentication fabric, I got you, right? So now being able to stitch these together. This is really, really cool. The reason that this came in, it says strategic context. And once again, I apologize for the long post in here. This is why this would end up being so important. I'm going to TLDR you right here. The strategic context following the Storm 558 attack, the U.S. government cybersecurity recommended that cloud solution providers implement linkable identifiers and tokens. That's because of the disjunction and disconnection of a lot of these systems, where you had maybe B2B integration, or you had nested identities, or if I'm going real old school, interdomain trust, that the way I log in one place may not be the way the other. So I could actually have a different persona based on how I logged in versus how I'm being represented in my end target. So I did not know that was one of the reasons that this particular linkable identity feature set was high priority ring 0, and they got it done fairly quickly. Once again, we'll put the link, put all the things in there that's applicable to catch it on. And another thing, this is a email for one of the top security sellers in regards to securing agentic agents. Hey, it's Brody the Transformer Man.
I just hang with Optimus Prime. He was the reason I was late. He needed help saving the world. So my bad. But
I thought he needed to stop for like oil change, gas, or something like that. Nothing like that. Okay.
I wonder how often Autobots and Transformers need oil changes. That's an interesting point.
Do they need oil? Or they just run on pure energon?
Pure energon is the lubricant and the power source. I like that. The
lubricant and the power source. I got another one here. It's in regard. Bro, do you got anything? I'm just doing a readout of all the media stuff. It was a long weekend for the Americans because we had Memorial Day off. So, and then I took Friday off, and then I was gone, and then I'm back. So it still feels like Monday to me. No idea why. So what's going on, man? Tell me something about what you got going on.
Hey man, I'm keeping busy, keeping busy. I'm working on a couple projects. One is a secure Azure infrastructure. I'm learning all kinds of stuff, right? I'm learning more about Terraform deployments. I'm learning more about Azure policy. I'm learning about compliance as code. It's a challenging project, and you learn a lot from those projects, which is really cool. And then a new one I started. We're helping a customer with a good old fashioned Active Directory migration. Good old fashioned on-prem, and it's we're teaming up with a partner to help with that one. We generally in Microsoft's consulting arm, we don't do those directly ourselves, so we team up with a partner. We provide guidance, and that's a new one for me, right? I've done ID migrations before, but not with Microsoft. So this is fun. It's fun to learn.
I've done a lot of AD migrations. That was sort of the core of the mid part of my career when I was doing a lot of collaboration work around Exchange migrations. So I had a lot of Exchange migrations that end up being, hey, we need to migrate AD first and then do that. I'm like, yeah. And I remember using tools like Quest and using tools like NetIQ and things like that. And now Microsoft has a very complete tool set that's probably just incumbent to, the solution now to be able to do that. When you say they're doing a migration, are they I won't say abandoning, are they transitioning away from on-premise AD and just going to Entra? Are they going from one?
I think it's a consolidation to start on-prem, and then they're going to look at more cloud-enabled organization in the future. But that's a very large forest, or it's a consolidation of multiple forests. And I didn't know this, but Microsoft's classic AD migration tool set, like ADMS and ADMT, they're not actually supported anymore officially, right? And so that's why we got a partner to run it, because we can't run something that we don't support inherently, right? But I did hear about, I had a colleague who was working with Quest to do a Power BI migration, and they have an AD migration tool as well, and that came up. But yeah, so it's interesting. Just like you, I've had experience in that in the past, but it's, again, every project's got a little something different,
Yeah, I've learned that AD migrations are some of your best security assessments and audits. You find out a whole lot of stuff, and it's about finding out who owns legacy applications. It's the screen test.
Exactly.
I break it. Who comes and screens? Exactly. Do we have to turn it back on? I big shout out to Eric Manning. MSFT or Microsoft dirtbag, as he calls himself. I think that he's of the position that AD is, legacy should be going away, right? We need to get off that and get to the Entra or Azure AD cloud base, because a bulk of the vulnerabilities that are out there for domain domination, all this other stuff, you have to have a domain to dominate, right?
Right.
So that, you can run, Azure Hound, or what it used to be called Bloodhound, against an empty directory. It's nothing there, right? But we'll see.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. What else did I was reading out? So I did that. A bunch of things. If you're talking about learning about Microsoft Purview as far as Security Copilot, there's a bunch of private previews about that. If you're part of the Customer Connection Program plus Security, and you sign up for it, you can get your tenant enrolled into that. I'm going to throw a couple of links in here talking about getting into the private preview program. If you have 365, you're consuming the XDR stuff, and then if you're consuming Purview, which is so crazy, Purview seems to be something that is acquired by the bill perspective, like E5, but it's really an Azure consumption workload because you set it up in Azure. And there's a new billing method for it now. I didn't attend the actual readout of it, but it's not free anymore. Got to pay. I think they call them something consumption units or something.
Yeah, they use the same SCUs, like for things like DSPM for AI and whatnot. It uses like SCUs in the background, so it's a similar consumption unit model as Security Copilot. Yeah,
and that's something, you're more in the purview. You have more of the purview and purview than I do. I'm threat intel, you compliance and purview, but I'm actually getting into it. I had a good talk with Frank today. Good shout out, Frank, talking about the different aspects of learning purview from a data protection, from a compliance standpoint, and then it was one more that he said so while purview in itself is this huge solution, there are definitely different avenues of expertise about what it does, right? And one thing that I know, because I did a presentation on this, is that the inspection, correlation, or data protection engine, I believe is semi-shared with what Defender for Cloud, or CSPM, is. When you do data protection in that, they use some of the same logic. I don't think they use it one for one, meaning that they share the engine as a single unified source of truth. But I think they share some of the same logic the way they go. Purview's this big, man. It's a monster. Do that. Instead of me throwing all of these links that I have in there for the notes, join the community, start with Microsoft Security Copilot, how to become a Copilot Ninja, all these other things, I'll save it for the show notes. Before we get our guest on, which we're probably 2 minutes over, but I hope you spare 60 more seconds. Anything you do good over the weekend? Like you said, holiday, you don't have a holiday in Canada.
We're getting ready for my little girl's first birthday party, so I'm getting the yard.
Wow, it's been a year?
It's been a year, yeah.
Oh, man, I remember that. Congratulations.
Yeah,
I
thank
think that's in what, a 1 year, man. You're a year old.
you.
So when you
Yeah.
become a parent, your age starts over. You 1 year old now as a parent. So with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and get our guest on, and I'm much gratitude for them correcting me on how to say it. And let me say it now before we get them on. Performanta. Performanta. So we're gonna get our guest on, Mr. Guy Golan. We're gonna bring him on the show. Guy,
Hello.
hello, sir.
You know what? I must say that I'd rather you make a mistake because it's always a conversation starter for us with that name. And I found it to be very good. Per for who, per for what, per for what, and eventually you have a conversation. What's the meaning of it and what stands behind it and so on and so forth.
Well, thank you so much, and we'll start that off. But before we get into the meaning and what it stands for and everything else, uh, your company has been on the show before when we had a session around Security Copilot partners that specialize in. You were recommended by James Key, who is on the GPS side for partners who are interested in Copilot. I am so happy to have you a return visit. But how about an introduction of yourself, who you are, your role, and then let's go into Performanta.
I
Okay.
love that. Brilliant. So Guy Golan is my name, and definitely my accent doesn't give it away that easily. I'm not American. I'm not British, although I live in the UK. I'm officially and born Israeli. Served in the Israeli Defense Force. Did my fair share of contribution where I did. A lot of that is not being really talked about or mentioned. And don't throw any numbers because you're not going to find them on Google. So that's where we're going to end it. That will be probably another discussion for another day. And funny enough is after 4+ years there, I never thought we would have some kind of a return into the cyber world. And I did what every Jewish mother wants her son to do: is either become a doctor or a chartered accountant. And I tried to become a chartered accountant, but I need a doctor because of the vomiting that I felt every day. So bottom line, that didn't happen. And miracle has it, I just found myself back 22 years later doing cybersecurity again and again and again, and loving every minute of it.
I get it. I find myself coming back to this thing. You can't get away from it. I am very familiar with the technical expertise and cybersecurity prowess that comes out of Israel. At the time, I was coming over there at least 4 times a year to Tel Aviv to work in ILDC. But yeah, that's great. So you found yourself saying, "Nah, I'm not gonna do accounting. I'm gonna do this cybersecurity stuff because it's easier, right?" And so you started this company, or I'll let you give the history of it. I don't know. Yeah.
So I've started the Performanta. Funny enough, is that literally we are celebrating our 15 years anniversary this month. So started May 2010 with a perception of a flight by night. That's what the competitors said, and I don't think many of them exist anymore. But that was quite interesting. And the whole idea, the whole concept, and this is where the name comes from, is it comes from some kind of a Latin deviation of the word performance, which we find that this is the biggest, and funny enough, or the biggest currency that in the cyber world today is performance, quality, delivery, value. And funny enough, is the new KPIs from Microsoft are all about technical capabilities and delivery this year coming. So that is pretty awesome. And that performance concept was something that I've already exited 2 companies before that. And the whole idea was in 2010, if you recall, it was pretty much about firewalls and antiviruses, and DLP was just introduced to the market in a much better, bigger way. DSPM now is a beautiful four-letter acronym, but it used to be ILM and ILP and so on. The whole idea behind that was that we're going to provide clients the journey. And funny enough, in 2016, we realized that what we do for the clients is meaningless because we defend them, but everybody can bypass them. So that forced us to become more looking into the offensive world. And 9 years after that, we're doing both the offensive and defensive. And now, in the last couple of years, we provide something that is quite a very strong currency in the cyber world, is the influx of data translated into meaningful context. And that's, to us, performance, because our objective day in and day out is to provide different stakeholders with enough context to make the right decision to keep them safe.
Yeah, and that's the thing is if you're forensics or investigator, whether you pre or post breach, is trying to figure out what they call that temporal moment or that pivot point to say, does the breadcrumbs lead to me to take this action? And eventually, you know, I'm a big role playing guy. Ooh, take the left road, you know, you do these things, or you go down a rabbit hole, and experience sometimes can be a detriment. You second guess yourself. I do it all the time because you start to go back and you think about all those things. But giving the security context is a big thing. Lots of companies have said that. Actionable intelligence, actionable insights, all the buzz marketing words. How do you go about saying I'm doing it in a way where either I give the option for the customer to take what we're saying and make decisions based on it, or we do this for the customer and we go. What is to take for you and your company to do this?
So, you know, as the founder of the business, and I was a CEO until about 6 months ago, now I'm the chairman of the business. The whole idea is coming down to one word: culture. The whole idea of cybersecurity can survive and thrive in a good way based on culture. And it's not the CISO, and it's not us as MSSPs that call the shots. It is an organizational effort that is there. And when we started as a company and understanding what needs to be done to keep clients safe and provide that genuine context, and this is a story. I do all hands once a month, and I got all the employees and I said to them, how many of you had enough of doing the same thing over and over again? 90, and I ran a poll, by the way, 97% said me.
Yeah.
So I said, great. New initiative. We call it Motivate to Automate. If you do the same thing twice, write why you don't want to do it for the third time. And for the record, that's your new KPI.
Love that.
Since that point, we automated over 15,000 processes in the business, including finance and sales and whatnot, not just in cyber. And that's where context comes into life, because context is about experience, is about what to do right. Simple example: when you go into a server room, what's the first thing that someone needs to teach you? Bring a jacket, right?
Yep. Experience also lends to context. You're absolutely right. I hear the word data center. It could be the summer. Bring a jacket. You just and you do that. It's very interesting that you say that the way that you go about stuff is the automation, the efficiency of it, and KPIs. And you said not just cybersecurity, you said in finance. I think, you know, process-driven things are all sort of security related because it sets the norm. And when something drifts from the norm, you go look at it and is this a process deviation, or is it someone doing something malicious? When we first had your company on, I was super impressed with the automation that was showed in the SOC portion about being able to either call the AI instance and then AI hand it back off to a biological entity to go back and do something. And it seems like instead of AI being a tool set on silicon wafers, it was a coworker.
Correct.
And the person could go on to do something else, and then your logic came back and say, hey, I did this. I need you to do this now. And that sounds like what I would work with Brody with. Like Brody has a different set of skills. I could do my part and say, hey, bro, I'm done with this, man. Let me know what you see. How's that evolved? Because I don't remember what actual day you guys came on, but it wasn't that long ago. So what innovations have you guys done so far?
So just as a short while, we were one of the first adopters in September 23 of the Security Copilot concept, or at that time it was called Copilot for Security. At that time, the whole idea is, okay, let's look at the art of possible, while the main message for Microsoft was, well, this is going to be a companion for the level 1 analyst to basically enrich their life. And guess what? At that time, in September 23, I had no level 1 analysts left in Performanta. Everything was automated already. Mm-hmm. So we had a very strong playbook that we need to plug something that can be sophisticated onto it. And we looked at it and we decided that, okay, we can write our own API and integrate Security Copilot into the essence of the playbook and make it, as you say, not only just a coworker, actually a coworker that is a level 5 with 1,000 brains. And stress test it and see how much that coworker is drinking too much alcohol or drugs and hallucinate, or it's actually doing a great job. And we found it to be pretty awesome in what it does. And we decided, okay, how can we broaden it? And this is part of where the culture is. There's no instruction coming from the top. The instruction of the coming from the top is stakeholders, giving them enough context to make the right decision to keep them safe. And we realize that there are three moving dimensions to do that. Time is definitely one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Second one is coverage, and the third one is the level of policy and rules that are being written at any given time to ensure that those are decisions based on some kind of detection that is in place. And Security Copilot was perfect for that. We evolved it. We are now serving clients around it. I think we are one of the only in the world that Security Copilot is absolutely working as part of our SOC services to them in those clients. And I'm talking about Fortune 250.
Yeah.
The second part of the evolution, sorry, Edward, the second part of the evolution was what else can we do? Because many of them came and said, oh, so can you deploy it for me? And the whole idea was if we deploy it for you, you take all of our IP, which is not really right.
Right.
So we built the agents. And the agents allow us to deploy it without basically having any of our IP in any danger format.
Smart. Yeah. The secret sauce is hidden.
Yes. That makes sense. Yeah. Even working at Microsoft as an employee and being able with the secret sauce is some of the stuff is still, like how do we do this? You have to go back and start at the basics. What is an agent? How's an agent constructed and all these other things? So I've learned the hard way being senior, go back to the basics, understand what they're trying to achieve with this I was saying angelic AI for a while. My wife's like, what? I say I'm an angelic.
Angelic.
Yeah. And I kept saying it like I was correct. Like, don't correct me. Like, yeah, we have angelic AI in Microsoft. I was like, okay. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Sure. Yeah. Beautiful. With that being said, one of the things I look at is this whole AI thing. Microsoft is not the trademark owner of Copilot. Copilot is just a moniker for saying what it does. But I see this fast evolution. I'm seeing more companies, and now that the word Copilot started becoming, you say it in normal conversation. Agentic AI and agents are the thing now. It's the innovation and progression of the way you go dependent upon Microsoft as they release things, or is the base concept enough for you to evolve and innovate on your own? Suppose Microsoft never released another agent, right? Is that sufficient to say, okay, we have the concept, we can continue to build and grow, because we want to grow the partner ecosystem, and the partner ecosystem has been the greatest part of Microsoft innovation. They bring solutions in, IP, and all that stuff. So I'll go back to the short question. Is what Microsoft done the ideal enough for you to take independently and be able to go forward?
So we don't need Microsoft's outcome. We need Microsoft recipes or ingredients, actually. Yeah. And we love. I'm a foodie, so let me talk about food. If you bring me an ingredient, we have good enough kitchen and good enough, tools to build something and make some good dish out of that, while understanding what the concept of an agent is. And Microsoft did a great job in that. At times, Microsoft did not know even how to productize it well enough, which is fine. It's a journey. We've taken it and decided to productize it that way. And we are one of 6 partners, worldwide that basically were on RSA, and our name was there by launching not one agent, but 2 agents.
Yep.
So the whole idea was the ingredients are, and I know there's a race, and that race is about marketing and about putting some things, some names out there and putting some definitions and some buzzwords. But the whole idea is their substance. And the agents that we work so tirelessly to build are literally open, in a sense, open agents that they can start talking to other agents and create a complete multi-ecosystem of agents correlating and talking in a SOC, outside of a SOC, with the managed controls team, whether it is EDR or MDE team, or it is on Intune, or whether it is, you mentioned about, Entra and identity, or whether it is Purview. And they start making some decisions, while at any junction, that what you've seen in the previous podcast that the team showed, the playbook, there are junctions where human beings have to be involved just because of the ethical code that we are all subscribed to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But without that, it can run awesomely, if there's a word like that.
I think that the innovation of being able to have these agents, and I'm going to speak from a very myoptic standpoint, Microsoft standpoint, is that the technology and stuff seems to be something that it breaks or it doesn't work as advertised, we go forward. But you got to figure out the cost factor. People are still trying to say, how do I, the question that is asked is not the answer that they want. They're like, well, how much does it cost? But what they're really asking is, what is the value? How do I show TCO and ROI? Right?
That's perfect.
Yeah, they have to ask the base question first. Well, how much does it cost, and how are you building me? And have you had to encounter that, and how do you come back and convey that to the customer where this is return on investment, this is total cost of ownership? Because I think now with AI, the return on investment is not so much as total cost of ownership. This is one of the few times I've seen TCO be more important than ROI, because we don't really know the power of it. So I can't tell you what the return on investment is, but I know what it's costing me. So what's the total cost of ownership? How do you handle those particular things? I don't know how to bill for this stuff.
So we've got an answer. We've got an answer. So first, let's look at the assumption. What is an AI? For us, an AI can be two things. It can be an application or can be a human being.
Mm-hmm.
We decided an AI is a human being. It's a persona.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is that persona? That persona is a persona that has 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 more capability than a human being, without hiring, firing, getting tired, wife, husband situation, family, sickness, or whatever that is. That is that persona. Now, we completely got out of the picture those three letters that everybody dread, SCU. Out of the picture entirely. We basically create a use case. And that use case was, if I were to use human beings to do it for you now, that's how much it would have cost you. But with the agent, that's how much it's going to cost you now. And the results are massive. I'm talking about 60 to 80% discount.
Yeah, I've heard that, and not to sit here and say that that's not been a valid consideration. It's one of the things to do it. I still go back and I like, the numbers that you give are very objective, but the measurement is very subjective, because people like Brody work way harder than me. So yeah, you ought to go get 80% discount. It's not trying to work out like that. So your actual savings on me is going to be easier to get, because it just is, right? And then I also heard the marketing around this is going to accentuate or enhance or be a tool for the junior analyst. I had a good discussion about this with a peer of mine and this is a topic for the day. I don't believe there's such thing as a junior analyst anymore. I think that now that I'm looking at the job boards, I'm seeing these things, and that's because HR people are just using AI and they're creating job descriptions that are recipes for building a unicorn. How can I be entry level when you want me to have 5 years experience in SOC and do all these other things? So I say, wait a minute, you can't say that that's an entry level. And then the other side of the market for the people that are selling anything to do that. So that sort of lends to, if AI can do all these things and it's acting way above what an entry level person should be, then does that pull up the entry level requirements? I don't know how to fix that. I was listening to a seminar the other day, and they're saying there are still 1.1 million cybersecurity jobs available and they can't be filled. I have yet to see a significant reduction in whomever's poll of that said that this can be addressed by using AI. I've heard the marketing, but I've not heard hiring managers and everybody do it. And I think it's a bunch of things. Can you give me some perspective on that? If we still have all of these jobs that are opening, and you say that AI can do these things, are the markets not talking? I'm like, wait a minute, I have AI here, and it's just not. I'll listen to you on that, because that had me scratching my bald head yesterday when I heard that.
That's fine. There's a lot of skepticism around that, and it's a great question, I think, and it's a great thing to ponder, because I'll give you another aspect is if it can replace level 1 and level 2 analysts, it means that a junior that just joins the market has to cross such a chasm to become level 3 and employable, because they can't really be employable at level 1 and level 2. And that means what will be the adoption rate of people in cybersecurity in the future? That's another dilemma that we all have to ask ourselves and how we deal with it. I think the bottom line is this: what we've seen when we had and before AI was even introduced, when we started with our automation, and again, AI is a massive amplifier to that, but automation is the crux of everything that we're doing. The idea was level one analysts, there were those that fell off the bus very quickly and said, yeah, that's not for me. And those that were saying, okay, I get what I need to do now, and I'm just work harder, get myself into a position that my contribution is more noticeable, and my contribution about doing something twice and not doing it for the third time is going to be seen and felt. As an ex-army guy, I'm going to say the following. Unfortunately, level one, and I don't mean to offend any level one, but there's an old say that we used to do in the army. Level one analyst, even if you hit them between the eyes, they can't even detect that thing.
You're right. And because I agree with you. I'm an ex-Navy. Thank you for your service right here. I agree with you.
Level one.
Yeah.
It's too easy.
I get it, because when you were bringing level one individuals in, and I came up through the ranks. I don't know, right? Brody's a young one here. Come up through the ranks. You spend as much time doing your job as you did learning, and your brain only has so much bandwidth. And I told people, you're going to do more learning and more skilling up when you get off work, because when you are in the trenches, there is no learning. It is reactionary and is performance. So I see this, and it sort of made me want to bring this up to you, because I heard it multiple times this week across different forums about people saying the entry level into cybersecurity has to be raised, and it may not be an entry level anymore, because the technology doesn't even is not considerate of the base things that I did, like getting your security plus and understanding. If I go out and ask some of these young folks now, describe the OSI model for me, they're like, what? What is that? Is that a social media app? Yeah, not so much. So you get it, right? But so with your company and the way that you're using AI in doing this, how do you enhance the skill of those who are just say, we're just going to make up a term. Level two may be a lower junior person.
Yeah.
How do you go in and you put that into that where it betters the company and at the same time betters the employees?
So critical thinking is vital. Ability to truly understand how to code and how to deal with automation. Mm-hmm. So the shift is a mind shift from I do the same work, mundane, as you said, like a machine, every day, all day long, 24/7, as much as I'm required. Shut up and do your job. Ask yourself a question: why am I doing it? For what reason? What tools I'm being given, and how they're going to help me to enhance who I am and what I do? Because what I currently do is becoming obsolete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as an example, so we've sent quite a few on critical thinking. We have allowed them to go and get part or be part of the automation process. Some of them went for coding and understand how to code, which today is much easier than ever before to code. And that level of thinking allowed those to elevate themselves into a desirable position. Now, will that position going to exist in 6 or 12 months? I'm not too sure. But we gave them enough tools to think about what's next as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And based on what you said about that, you look at it and you say critical thinking, and I'm gonna take that concept and put it to a tactical execution, which is threat hunting. Yes. AI to me is still not. It's awful at threat hunting. People are, it can threat hunt. It's best. It's doing threat detection, right? Because it's already happened. I'm looking for indicators of compromise. I'm doing these things, and if I don't hit a particular pattern that it recognizes, especially when the tool set is almost 100% live off the land, RDP, WMI, all these things. I didn't put Mimicaps down. I didn't make Cobalt Strike and all these other things. I'm using PowerShell because guess what? You allow it. Unsigned script. Oh yeah, you allow RDP internally. That's part of your admin tools and things like that. I've not seen a whole lot of innovation around proactive threat hunting in AI, and I don't believe it's there because it's too logical, right? If it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, swims like a duck, then it's a hawk. Because why is this duck going out of the way to act like a duck? And then when I question the duck, are you a duck? Aflac.
So
Yeah.
Edward, you're asking some really good stuff here. I dare to say that we are in final stages of developing a threat hunting agent, a proactive one, that will be released in the next 3 to 4 weeks, and that's going to be an interesting one for all of us to test and see what's the strength of it is. And again, it comes back, and I can't stress enough the importance of the word culture. And I'll give an example. I sit in Microsoft forums with other CEOs. And you've got some amazing leadership within the Copilot realm of Microsoft, and there are some serious good questions. And one of the questions, which is a simple one, is who's doing Security Copilot? Raise your hand. Out of 15 people in the room, I'm the only one raising the hand.
Yeah.
And
I can see that. I can see that people don't want to be first, and this is one of those aspects that AI, and if we do microsegment of to Agents Copilot, was the next big iteration after going to the cloud.
Yeah, and the idea is not to do enough. The idea is to do more than enough, because enough is not enough to protect an environment. If you have many layers of defense wherever you are, enough will not work. AI is the one that pushes enough to almost perfect. But to go from that enough to almost perfect, you need to know that your processes are polished and solid, that your people know what their roles are and where they're getting into. You know what potentially the learnings are, and test whether that chasm between enough and perfect is being fulfilled by that tool, Copilot. Now, I can tell you something, and this is not an advertisement to Microsoft. We've tested many others. You really have an awesome tool.
Nice.
That's good. And I
Stock price up.
And I'm a big fan of it. To go back to what you were saying about your threat hunting tool, I'm interested, and once you launch it, I will stay in touch about it, because I think the human aspect of being a biological threat hunter, or the sentience, is better than that, because AIs don't have a sense of consequence. If I break something, am I going to get fired? You just do it, right? And I think sometimes second guessing will also lead you down the path of, I don't think I need to do that, or I don't want to wake someone up. And then you'll do a little bit more investigation rather than run through logic. As it gets better, it'll be able to make these illogical decisions, right? And that's the thing that the humans always win in science fiction. We think illogical, and the machines can't cope, and then we win, right?
We just re-rig the deflector array and we handle all the problems.
Yep, that's all we had to do. You recalibrate the dilithium warp core, and that's how you win, right? With that, how do you measure? There seems to be the same subset of problems people always say, and the same marketing thing. Mean time between detection, mean time between response, and all these other stuff. Eventually, you can't go to that anymore, because now you're going to say we have zero,
mean time to resolve. It's the new currency. Mean time to truly resolve a situation. Again, I'm going to speak a little bit of an army definition. The whole idea about a hostage situation is that when you have that, you don't go into room 302 because that's where the hostages are and say, I contained it and it's done. You go into a building that has 15 stories. You go from the roof, from the basement, you cover and make sure that every other room is scanned and looked and viewed before you make sure that 302 is being handled. And by that time, you already had so much conversations with the guys that took people hostage, because you want to keep them and make sure that the other building or the rest of the building is clean. Now, cybersecurity, it dumbs me to understand how cybersecurity is doing a lot in basically doing things fragmented and look literally through a peephole and do your job, as opposed to thinking broadly. So, and I find it very weird. And by the way, my previous life before going into cybersecurity was in aviation, and I'm not sure if you still remember the old 747s, the double decker. there's something called Section 41, which is the big beam that connects the two deckers. And I was in MRO, maintenance, repair, and overall. And next to that, there used to be those toilets with the blue liquid. You remember that blue liquid? Now, when you run a service on that Section 41, you just need to see the strength of the beam, and that's it. But if you are amazing at what you do, you see meter to the side or 3 feet to the side, 3 feet to the other side. And many of the aircraft of the 747-100 did not really survive because of corrosion made by a leakage of the blue liquid that was 3 feet to the right of that beam. So if you look at that, make sure that you stop the leakage of that toilet. The beam is strong and capable. And those that didn't just said, oh, 747 is not really a safe aircraft. That was a wrong conclusion. And I see it in cyber every day.
Great
wrong
analogy.
Derived of wrong looking at things. So if you start looking things broadly, bring them together, contextualize them as much as you can based on experience, not machine experience, human experience. Try and see if the machine can couple that and basically amplify that, you're on the right track.
I think it's not so much experience. Absolutely. You're right there with that. I think it's collaboration. And we had a reckoning of this a long time ago that we said that no matter what you do, you were going to become a developer. GitLab, GitHub, you're going to have to learn some other language and in a mediocre manner. Some PowerShell, some Python, some Sharp. You got to learn it. And I think the same thing goes into this. We're in a point that you don't get to say, I'm on an identity team. Security is not my problem. It is your problem. I don't get to say on the infrastructure.
They're the same thing.
Exactly.
It is.
Exactly.
Because you're starting to see that instead of having a set of solutions and a bubble around them that says this secures all these solutions, that each one of these, endpoints, identity, cloud, they all have a now circle around them where the security is built into the actual solution that you do. You can stand up Entra and it has security options built into it, right? What I have to turn on, the Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, or turn it on, and everything now has security built in it rather than having a shim put into it. Think of antivirus. Back in the day, Microsoft was lucky. I don't think it was a whole lot of skill and everything else to say, yeah, we need to build an antivirus into our OS rather than keep trying to put ESEP, McAfee, and all these overlays on it, right?
It was certainly monetarily smart because as I talked to the team that manages MDE, some of which are in Israel, working day and night to make that product better, because we have direct access to the kernel, it stands apart from other EDRs because of that important access there, right? So it was a no-brainer that sure could have been done earlier, but I mean, it's really paid off dividends now.
I heard a rumor that there was just a rumor. If you go talk to enough of the old heads, that Microsoft didn't want to build an AV into their thing, and I still think they probably purchased something that ultimately ended up being the vendor. But they had made an offer to a major person to say, "Hey, we want you so we can put this on here," and they didn't do it because at the time you couldn't tell. I date myself. You couldn't tell Norton that they were never going to exist anymore, right? Before they transformed into Symantec and McAfee to turn into whatever it may be. So I think the innovation is there for those who want to really solve a problem. I think now, I maybe have, because I've been doing this so long, a little bit, disenfranchised. It seems like innovation is not the key to anything anymore. Everybody's rushing to a $1 billion valuation so they can be acquired. That's what's going on, right? Can I solve a problem? For the benefit of mankind. Some companies they're doing good stuff, but in the end, the business runs the business. Now, with the agents, and which is a new shiny, we haven't used that word in a long time, Brody. New shiny agents are the new shiny.
Our angelic agents, yes. We want to hear more from Guy.
They should put in there. We have angelic agents. Things come out, and big shout out to the Pope, angelic angels. Come on the show.
To the Pope.
Come on the show. I like to talk to him.
Sure.
Rabbi, if you don't mind.
And rabbis, absolutely.
And rabbis, and rabbis, equal opportunity.
Just passing a joke, yes.
We're fun on this show all day. So give me a little future. I want you to put your CEO hat on. It sounds like you're a tech geek. All right, no more geek. I need some leadership.
He knows how to clear rooms effectively. Mm-hmm.
Whatever. Give me. You don't work and you don't own and you don't have anything. You are an advisor to me.
Yeah.
Give me 6, 12, 18 months around AI impact on security all up. Doesn't have to be agents. It could just sit here and say, I believe if I was doing this or I was doing it on a startup, or if I believe AI is going to make this thing. Give me a 6 months look, and I'm gonna leave it right there. Give me 6, and just give me 6 and 12 months. 18 is too far out. We don't know what's going to happen in 18 months.
Okay, so I'll tell you this: for one assumption, in the next 12 months, governments will continue misbehaving, and because the moment that they start behaving, there will be a big change. But so far, governments, no matter what their name is, they are misbehaving. So the assumption is that while they misbehave, 6 months from now, what would happen is this. There'll be basically, I think, 3 main dimensions going to happen. One, consolidation in the market where vendors are going to acquire more services providers because they just don't have that level of touch with the clients. Mm-hmm. So I see that happening more and more. Yesterday's Zscaler acquisition of Red Canary is a great example of that. I do see that in 6 months' time, those that are doing the old-fashioned plumbing and electricity wiring are going to start eating into their margins substantially. I do see that they will stop surviving in that aspect. And I see MSPs dabbing into the MSSP world because security is going to become allegedly more approachable or reachable to them. These are my 3 predictions of 6 months from now. I think 12 months from now is going to be even more interesting. I think the lines between MSSP and network providers, NOC and SOC, are going to start amalgamating, and the context is going to be broader than security context. It would be a business context based on digital footprint and digital touch points. I do envisage almost like a war of the worlds between Microsoft, Google, and there will be probably a third contender that probably CrowdStrike. But it's not, right now it's like, some punches. It will be a war of the worlds, and there'll be some kind of attempt for world domination of a vendor. It depends on the I think those that will survive are those that have the clear vision and also the intent of genuinely making a difference. And I think Microsoft has that. That's the second part of that, I believe, 12 months from now. And maybe I'm thinking too fast, and then from an AI point of view, I believe in 12 months' time, we're going to see a new thing. And we have a service that we launched around, but it's early days. It will be AI MDR. So basically, managed detection and response for AI misbehavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. I think a lot of times I'm not nearly as connected you are in the thought leadership and having to run a major company, but I totally can relate to what you're saying. And when you say the war of the world, you're seeing that, and it seems like the referee between the 2 major powers who are eventually going to have to collide. And it's Microsoft and Google with the acquisition of Wiz, right? The writing's on the wall. I think there's one more acquisition that Google needs to make. They don't have an endpoint. They don't have an EDR solution.
So Edward, I said it to a few Microsoft. I said, what is the cheapest commodity for Microsoft? Endpoint. What is the cheapest commodity for Google? Storage.
Yes. So each one has a different superpower that they want to leverage and see whichever it is, because Google storage is absolutely cheap. I don't know if they're using IDE drives.
I don't know. But if Microsoft sorts out storage, then consumption is going to drop, and then they rule the world. If Google integrates endpoint, they have consumption that is already cheap. They rule the world. I think these are the 2 major, probably vectors that are going to determine the supremacy. Now, just as interesting, and I've said it a few times, with all the respect to Google, They are building a 20-piece puzzle right now, and they've got about 12 pieces already sorted out. Microsoft is on the 1,000-piece already puzzle.
I would see and say that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you got a 20-piece puzzle, I think that a lot of times the technology is not the determining factor of how companies come and go. It's the leadership and the vision.
But to guys like point there, that's interesting. I think it's easier for Microsoft to figure out the storage question than it is for Google to figure out the endpoint question.
Oh, it's going to be painful for them. And for the record, Mandiant is not really a hands-on keyboard engineering organization. It's a consulting company that looks after an incident response. Well, yeah, you need to have someone that can fix the problems.
Yeah, good point.
I would sit here and say I love this banter. I think that Google's approach to the EDR is much easier than you think it is. It's going to be, and I think between these two superpowers, the regulator or the referee is going to be government regulation. Sooner or later, the word's going to come up monopoly.
So I write a note and I'm going to send it to you, but I'll reveal to everybody. Google is going to acquire SentinelOne. How about that?
Yep. I couldn't say it because I work for Microsoft, but I heard this all week. I think I said someone said, is that right? And you heard it on the show. I didn't say it. I heard that several times this week.
Spicy rumor alert. And
this is what it makes sense. This makes so much more sense. Let me tell you what didn't make sense. Let me make sure the comments that I and Brody expressed are not the comments and the direct representation of our employer, Microsoft. This is my own. I thought Google and Microsoft dodged a bullet, just like this. Because had AWS bought Splunk, you might have had a problem. You might have had a problem there. But Cisco they threw me off. I'm like, Cisco. If AWS had bought them, then you would have to look at it and say, these guys are serious. Yeah. Right? Google buying Wiz, I've made jokes, give it a year, they'll mess it up. I'm not so sure now. Because I think that there are enough other players who are not as large who have shown it. A serious contender who could be a big wig, but just can't put enough weight on their bones is Palo Alto. They just can't put enough weight on to fight up in their weight class. So they're going to dominate that weight class that they're in, right? But if they had some oomph to them, and then you'll see some people who may be left at the altar because CrowdStrike is super independent, but I don't know if they want to be acquired. We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. So there's still a lot of players to be out there. And these are the incumbents, right? These are the people who've been proven they can do these things. SentinelOne would be a great one. Probably most mature, either the second tier EDRs. I'm thinking Carbon Black. Trend Micro's not bad. Fortinet, I heard, it has a play. I did not realize they were EDR things. So
sorry, don't even mention. I can mention that.
Okay.
Don't.
Yeah.
Not even.
Right. Well, this has been really, really, really good, guy. I really appreciate you coming on. This is probably one of those things that we probably should have had a CEO roundtable edition because we could have invited a bunch of CISOs and everything to come talk to you. I am super impressed with what your company's doing. The reputation is really good. I think that you're not super known as much in the US, but when I go across the pond, I know who you are. Right, they do these things. Same way I knew about Quorum Cyber. They shout out to Quorum. How y'all doing? Friend of the show. They've been on too. We're friends with everybody. But yes, when this threat hunting thing comes out, I would love for you to come back on. We will push somebody out the show because I'm just not believing that is going to be the thing because I don't think that AI is imaginative enough, Yeah. And when you can be imaginative enough, because you can go in and look for vulnerabilities. Is it not patched? Is this port open? It's going to be the same thing that you do. I want something that says, "Oh, I'm threat hunting," and it seems as though the executive assistant has sent ads or something like this. The CEO, I want to do these things. Can I personate that? Those are the things that humans can do. When you do things too structured, I can tell when you write me an email from using any AI. It just looks too perfect, right? So threat hunting can be too perfect also, I believe.
So Guy, your challenge is to come on and wow Edward and everybody when you have this thing 1.0.
I've learned one thing, and I've listened a lot to Steve Jobs when he launched the iPod, and he went to the investors and asked for some money for it, and they said to him, "So how many holes that iPod got?" He said, "I beg your pardon," and they said, "Well, clearly there's a tape and cassette." He said, "No, there's none of that," and they said, "Well, so there's no 2 holes and there's no tape cassette. So how can it retain, music and 3,000 of them?" "Well, it's called storage." And he said, "Well, can you at least put 1 hole?" And he said, "I don't need any hole there." So I think the idea is that it's almost too good to be true. But we launched some things that are too good to be true, and they're working exceptionally well. I think that's where I'm so proud of the team and the way they lead that. Is that the ability to genuinely think about, you mentioned, Edward, some serious stuff, like vulnerability management. Vulnerability management is dead. Vulnerability prioritization is alive and kicking.
Yes.
Take a vulnerability from Defender and take one from Nessus, and they contradict each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How do you bring them into a point that people can truly manage not 100,000 vulnerabilities, but 50 on 7 machines that will reduce the risk by 90%? That is a great insight, and that insight is part of threat hunting. The idea is, and for the record, this is out of the box of Performanta already.
Yeah. That's a great point.
Call out.
That is, people believe that security is perfection. It is not. It is hold and serve. When that ball comes back over the net, you got a lot of decisions to make. All right.
Well, and what he's saying too is that if you're keen to innovate in this area, you'll find success if you target what is going to have the most amount of effort, most amount of impact with the least amount of effort, and makes it easier for the individual. Right?
And it sounds like you have instilled a culture of let's solve the hard problems. Anybody can solve the easy problems. Let's go solve the hard problems, and that's where the innovation is. That is great. Sir, I'd like to thank you so much and give you the last closing before we allow you to get back to your time, because I know the time difference. I apologize. We thank you so much for this. Any last words before we close out the show?
Apart from I'm going to sleep now, but I think I want to thank you, Edward and Brody. That was awesome. I really enjoyed it, and yes, you do subscribe to the word fun, and I love that. So I just want to thank you very much for allowing me to be on the show.
And you are welcome anytime. One of the things you didn't read in the fine print, when you come on the show, you saw the Endear to come on as a host one day so we can take vacation, take holiday. So you're going to have to host the show for us.
Well, the whole Europe host episode, that'd be great. I can just run a different time zone. That'd be fantastic.
When I'm over there that side of the pond and I can maybe break out some time, which I may, I'll surprise you off late in the year. I'll look you up, sir. Maybe we'll share a pint if you so indulge. But to our listeners, we'd like to say thank you so much for indulging us in our annual partner month. I believe that we have closed it off on a high note by having a reoccurring partner come back on and just reiterate what they are doing to innovate. And if you're at Microsoft, this is one of those pillars of building upon the work of others. These guys are doing great stuff. Check them out. The show notes will be out. We'll be a little late in publishing. I want to say hello to Ray and Rod. You guys get well and get healthy. Come on back. Really appreciate it. To everybody, have a good one.
Take care. Thanks,
Cheers.
guys. Thanks, everyone.